Hey everyone, this is Brian from the Tennis IQ podcast. Josh and I hope that you are enjoying the content and discussions that we put out week after week. If you'd like to support the podcast and help us to continue to produce quality episodes, please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/tennisiqpodcast/membership. Currently, we have 3 tiers of support: the fan level at $3 per month, the supporter level at $7 per month, and the champion level at $20 per month. Benefits of joining the Tennis IQ podcast community include episode transcripts, participation in book club discussions, and access to monthly masterclasses with me and Josh. For more on these benefits of support, head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/tennisiqpodcast/membership. Thank you so much. And now, on to the show. Hello and welcome to the Tennis IQ podcast. I'm Brian Lomax.
And I'm Josh Berger. And in today's episode, we are going to be actually responding to a listener question. We had a really great question from one of our listeners named Owen. So thank you, Owen, for the question about us recording something that people can listen to before a match. And we've discussed in past episodes what are some of the things that people want to think about with their preparation for matches. Commonly, tennis players will focus on their physical preparation, their physical warm-up, which might include their warm-up with their opponent, but maybe they do other things in terms of a dynamic stretch or other things physically. But what can players do mentally to mentally prepare and mentally warm up and mentally be ready for the upcoming match? So in today's episode, we will discuss some of these things. And I think our intention is for this to be really applied. This can be something that, again, you can listen to before a match. You can listen to the whole thing. You can listen to portions of it, whatever works best, but really sort of viewing it as a checklist of certain things to think about. And we're going to touch on a few main points in terms of things to focus on. But I think, this can definitely be an episode that hopefully you can use and apply to your own game. And we will have other episodes, other resources like this that can be applied. We'll have in the future other episodes that are more applied, and also for patrons, for people that are a part of our Patreon program of support, we will have other resources similar to this, more resources like this. As part of that program, in terms of applied tools that people can really bring to their own games, things people can do before, during, and after matches. But some more tools like this are certainly on the way. So Brian, as you think about this topic, as we start to think about how players can best prepare, where do you think it would make sense to start this episode?
Well, I think when I think about that, Josh, what comes to mind is that players typically prepare well physically. And so, what Owen is getting at is a little bit beyond that, because if you're physically prepared but mentally and emotionally not fully ready, then your performance will suffer. So when I think of the sort of higher level components that go into this preparation, I think about your motivation for playing, whatever event it is, the big why of that, your focus, and there are obviously components of that, your intensity and your drive, your confidence and your self-belief, and then your positivity and optimism, really kind of around attitude piece. But I think, to me, motivation is a good place to start, because it can set the context, the proper context, for how you want to perform today, what this means. And so if we're talking about motivation and connecting with that before a match, simply ask yourself, how does this match fit into my overall journey as a tennis player? Why am I playing this match or this tournament? How does this help me move forward on my journey? And I think we can recognize that most players perform better when they feel less pressure, lower anxiety. There, of course, are exceptions to that. Some players actually are able to use pressure as a means of activating themselves more. But I think in general, most players can perform better when there's less pressure, lower anxiety. And to me, the motivation piece, putting the match in proper context of its overall purpose, can help lower the pressure here. A loss is not a threat to your identity. And so if we can use our motivation as, all right, yeah, I'm playing this because this is a part of my journey toward becoming the best player I can become, etc. So to me, a great exercise before you play, whether you want to write this down or not, is to think back to, why do I compete? How does competing help me on my path to mastery? Is this a tournament that I want to play? Why do I want to play this match? Right? Sort of the autonomy piece of things, the passion. Is there an opportunity to connect with others as a part of this event? Maybe it's building a stronger connection with your coaches, your parents, your friends. Is there an opportunity to be more a part of the community by participating in this event? And so just giving some real thought to those questions can put, I think, the overall event and match into some context that will now allow you to plan out the other aspects of the mental, emotional preparation that I specified earlier, that I also know that you have a lot of great ideas on.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it's very important to start with sort of that deeper why, that deeper reason for why you're playing. And I think that can be both bigger picture in terms of, what is your reason for playing the sport in general? And for each person, that's going to look a little bit different. That might be more in terms of mastery. I want to see how good I can get at this sport. I want to be the best player I can be. And hopefully today is a step in that direction. It could be some of the things that you're bringing up in terms of the community, in terms of the people that you get to be around, in terms of that sort of thing. It could be completely other reasons. It could be health and fitness. It could be a host of different reasons. It could be because you enjoy it. It could be often a combination of factors. But really being able to connect to I think your deeper why, your bigger picture why you play the sport, and then also, why are you playing this match, and what can you get out of this match? I far too often players will, rather than really thinking about what they can get out of each match, I think they will sometimes say, "Oh, I have to play this type of match," right? And maybe they view it that way because of their opponent's ranking or rating. Maybe their opponent is ranked or rated a lot lower than them or higher. And because of that, they aren't as eager to play in the match. It could also be because their opponent maybe plays a certain playing style. Maybe they lob more. Maybe they're more of a counterpuncher or what some might say a pusher. And it's the type of playing style that they don't enjoy playing against, or maybe they're critical of that playing style for whatever reason. Could be maybe a player that they've played in the past. So I agree, Brian, that having, finding that reason why they can benefit, not only why are they playing the sport in general, but why are they playing this match, and how can they benefit from this match, I think is great, right? If they're playing a certain playing style, they're playing against a player with a playing style that they don't enjoy playing against, or that they've struggled against. Well, then that's easy. Then this is another opportunity to get better at playing against that type of player, right? Especially the player I was describing is the type of player that, most people don't like playing against that sort of player. They tend to be very frustrating to play against. So this is a great opportunity to get better against that type of player. You want to be the type of player that can play against anybody, ideally. So I agree that in general, starting with those bigger picture reasons, that why in general is a great place to start. And then we can start to think about what are some of the specific tools that we want to be including. And I think, a way that I often structure this is in different sessions with an athlete as we're working together, we work on different skills, whether this is self-talk, whether this is visualization, whether these are goals and different types of goals, whether these are certain reminders and certain things that they want to try to keep in mind and bring with them from our sessions to the practice court and the match court. So, as we think about different skills and building those skills, I think that time right before a match is a great time to review some of these things. And, you can review that can be done in different ways. You can review some of the notes that we're talking about, but I think having a clear structure, and I think we'll discuss that today, is really key. And I think also just knowing that when it's 30 minutes before a match, that you've done everything that you really can. Yes, there's certain things that you can review. Yes, there's certain things maybe you can listen to or visualize or complete at that point, but you're not making radical changes at that point. It's time for you to prepare yourself to play and perform ultimately. It's not the time to be changing things. You want to feel ready, and you're going to feel most ready if you can trust the skills that you have. It's not about making major changes at that point. So I think, starting to think about as we maybe think about a checklist or some different tools and skills that we want athletes to maybe review and go over during this time. I think that self-talk is always a, really fundamental one. So, one thing that I'll do with people is, really try to think about and write down what are a few of the main situations where their self-talk tends to get more negative or tends to maybe work against them, and write down what does that self-talk actually look like in those situations, and then really start to plan out how they want to talk to themselves. So that could be, as an example, that could be one tool that they could look at. And again, that's a simple exercise that people can do at home. Again, this is sort of the abridged version, but being able to plan out, okay, in certain situations, whether it's a tiebreaker, whether it's a deuce point, whether it's some other sort of tough situation, how do you want to talk to yourself? Can you, again, that time right before a match is probably not the time to be planning that out. Hopefully that's taken place, ahead of time and reviewed and, reviewed consistently. But then that time before a match, that is one of the skills that I think one of the tools that can definitely be reviewed during this time, to just really remind yourself of how you want to be talking to yourself. And also that's something you can bring with you to the court, right? So if we have a reminder system, some sort of note card, that could be a part of it, or that could be a separate document, or that could be a part of it in terms of, can we have something tangible with us on the court as well that you can review? So I think as we start to think about those specific tools, both before a match and something you can bring with you to a match, really thinking about and really being aware of your self-talk and how you communicate with yourself, especially in challenging situations, I view also as a good starting point.
For sure. And we have discussed in the past the idea of a coach's voice, one in which you use your name and then it's followed by, some intentional self-talk that we want to use. And so one of the ways I've done this, Josh, is to also look at, say, a green light self-talk script, and then having other, an inventory of phrases on your reminder list that could be then utilized in different situations. And we've also talked in the past about using Dan Abraham's method of 3 plays. So to me, the self-talk script to use in many of these situations is like a 3-part thing. So for example, let's say my green light, things are going fine. Self-talk script could be breathe, watch the ball, next point. And then, as long as things are going fine, I could just continue to use that. Breathe, watch the ball, next point in between. But perhaps then one of those situations you just brought up pops up. Maybe it's break point. Maybe it's, something I've struggled with in the past. All right, I've probably got a phrase or two that I can now insert here into this moment. And it might be, breathe, play with courage, dictate play. something that gets you to now handle the situation as you have planned out in a session or previously, so that you're attacking this moment the way that you want to. And I think for me, oftentimes the green light script comes from setting some process goals for the day. It doesn't have to, but it should at least support that. So, what are process goals? Process goals are goals that we fully control when we go out into the court. Now, of course, we all want to win. And so that's kind of an unstated goal, I would say. It depends on the situation, right? But if you're playing somebody who's much, much better, then it's not necessarily about winning, but it might be about competing, etc. But most of the matches we play are probably within the realm of winning. So, if we're working together, Josh, you and I, we don't need to talk about winning, right? It's sort of understood that that's why you're going out there. Because if you're not going out there playing to win, then what are you doing? We're not going to learn anything from that. So we don't need to talk about winning, but we want to talk more about the how. How do you see yourself creating a good performance that allows you to have the chance to win, right? And that comes down to the more controllable things. So it could be footwork, breathing, time between points, using your strengths, remaining calm, positive attitude, right? So a lot of it's really a mix, I'd say, of physical and mental emotional components. You can make it all physical if you wanted. You can make it all mental emotional if you wanted, right? This really depends on you and what you're trying to achieve today. But those process goals can then feed into your self-talk scripts that you use during the match, because the self-talk scripts are really important because of the way that we as humans speak to ourselves. And a good part of one of the self-talk systems is a little bit out of it's out of our control, right? So anybody who's done any meditation and had your mind wander, you realize you can't control your thoughts. There are things that just pop up. And in a tennis match, those can often be where the negative, critical things come from. They're quick. And the self-talk that we're discussing here is the more intentional self-talk that we have to be aware of and conscious to use. Because if we're not conscious to use it, then the unintentional automatic thoughts are the ones that can dominate. And that generally doesn't lead to good places, right? So that's why it's a great suggestion on your part to bring out, hey, let's plan out our self-talk. Because you and I can be aware of it, but I don't want you thinking about, all right, what should I say in this situation, right? You should know going into the situation what you want to say. So that makes it easier, having the reminder card or your section of your notebook dedicated to reminders for today. Very helpful. And I've had lots of great success with athletes using that. I've had personal success using those reminders to be able to win matches and overcome challenges. So I think kind of to begin with, at least on the self-talk, marrying your process goals with your self-talk scripts. And then also, as you're saying, let's have an inventory of self-talk scripts for different situations, so that when we get in those situations, we try to use them. And as a reminder, the coach's voice is about you stating your name. Okay, Brian, you got this. Breathe. Watch the ball. Play with courage. Let's go. And very easy, rational, and you're speaking to yourself in the second person. So all of your self-talk script, if you're going to refer to yourself, use you. Don't use I necessarily. But when I write them out, Josh, I don't really even have that. I just have this sort of the short phrase of what it is. But people can really construct this how they want. But I think this is really a key aspect of the preparation, so that when you get out there, you're managing that part. Because that's going to manage your attitude, your determination, your playing to win. So much of it is driven by those messages we're giving ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think going back to the this the self-talk piece, and I'm glad that you brought up the meditation piece of all this, because through meditation, hopefully you're building the skill of awareness and starting to be aware and notice the thoughts that pop up. So rather than you having a certain thought or feeling and just acting on it, which I would say is the default state, being able to be aware of what those thoughts or feelings are. And those thoughts can be negative, they can be uncomfortable. In a tennis match, they might be self-critical. Why, my backhand is horrible, or I can't serve, or worse, right? And I don't have to go into examples. People can use their imagination or use their own memories. But those thoughts can be critical, and they can also be very result based and score based, and it's very easy for our thoughts to start drifting towards outcomes and start thinking about how I want to win this match, or if I were to win, what would that do to my UTR, or I really don't want to lose, or maybe I my UTR is higher than this person, so I don't want to lose too many games, because even that could impact my rating. So I think it's very common for our thoughts to drift towards the critical, but also towards results, which, as we've talked about so many times, tends to really hurt. But I think once we're able to be aware of them, then the thought itself is not so scary. The thought itself is just a thought, and we can recognize it for what it is. And then once we're aware of it, then we can choose how we want to respond. Then we can choose what we want to do next. Do we want to introduce a new thought that we've planned out? Something that we've scripted out? Can we, something that we've planned out that we want to say to ourselves in that situation? And it could be simple, breathe and believe, or trust your game, or go for it, or whatever it is, next point, WIN, what's important now, whatever it is. But once we get to that point of being aware of the thought, the feeling, what's actually happening in the moment, then we can decide what our response is going to be. And that response could be some specific planned out self-talk. That response could be a deep breath. That response could be really committing to our routine going into the next point. That response could be that we notice that we feel physically tight. And okay, then what do I want to do about it? Can I shake out my arms and legs? Can I do some maybe progressive muscle relaxation and intentionally tense and loosen parts of my body that hopefully I've done off the court and before that? So I think once, I think the awareness piece is really key here. So I think self-talk, as we've mentioned, I think is definitely a key point. I'm glad that you brought up process goals. I think, for some players, maybe earlier on in their journey of using an in-between point routine, I think having that written out, or at least some of the key points of that written out, and being able to review that before a match is really key. I think also being aware of how you're feeling physically. Are you feeling really pumped up? Are you really excited? Maybe more on the anxious side? Are you feeling maybe a little bit too relaxed or really relaxed? And again, I think over time, you start to realize, you start to figure out what is your ideal performance state. What is that ideal place where you perform optimally, you perform at your best? For some people, it's way more on the intense, pumped up side. For another player, maybe it's way more on the relaxed side. For most players, somewhere in between. So figuring out over time what works best for you, and then having the awareness pre-match to realize, where are you on that scale? Are you too far on one side or too far on the other side? Or are you in the right place? And then do you have the skills to adjust that? Can you use your tools, whether it's breathing, whether it's progressive muscle relaxation, whether it's, using other types of breathing to actually pump yourself up if you feel too relaxed, right? We talk a lot about breathing to de-stress, to relax, to release tension, but can you use other sorts of breathing to do the exact opposite, to amp yourself up, to pump yourself up, to increase your intensity in and as needed. So I think being aware of that pre-match is also really key because you want to be able to utilize those same exact skills during a match. So I think really checking in on that area is key, so that if the same thing happens during a match and it's break point, it's deuce point, it's tiebreaker, that you can use those same skills and check in with yourself as needed, and then hopefully make those adjustments that you need to use.
And I think, yeah, you're getting onto the topic of like becoming better at managing your physiology, understanding, how you're supposed to feel and then what to do about it. So you mentioned breathing exercises. So what exactly are those? We could do rhythmic breathing exercises. Let's go with more the kind of the calming side of things, or really just to help bring more coherence to what you're thinking. Because I'd say the majority of tennis players, again, are probably a little bit overhyped, feeling too much pressure, et cetera. But that's why we did the motivation piece first. So we could do simple breathing exercises of inhale for 3 or 4 seconds, hold for a second, exhale for 5 or 6, and do that for a period of time. And there are websites that can allow you to do that, or apps. So engaging with that for 2 to 3 minutes is a great way to just sort of kick off the focus part of your preparation, is to bring some coherence to your mind and body through the controlling of the breath. And that's similar to meditation as well. So if you prefer to meditate in that manner, you could count your breaths. You could take an inhale, an exhale, and then say 1. And count the number 1 in your mind. And then the next one, 2. Maybe do 10 of those types of breaths. Again, you're starting to develop a rhythm, and you're bringing some coherence to your mind and body. And what's that going to help you do? It's going to help you think better. It's going to help you be more perceptive on the court. You'll be much more of a problem solver. One of the books that we've read, Josh, is Jackie Reardon's Mindset, when she talks about using the breath as a bridge between overthinking and more or less right thinking. Can't just go from overthinking and being critical to boom, now I'm thinking fine, right? We use the breath as a means of making that transition and turning our brains back on. So that's, I think, a good start. So you could do breathing exercises, you could do meditation. And I know one of the topics that you really wanted to get into today that can be used for focus, intensity, confidence, everything is visualization and how we do that. And it's a very powerful skill, and it doesn't necessarily have to be done, in a very structured environment for 5 or 10 minutes. You could literally do some of this in 5 to 10 second bursts that provide a lot of information about how you want to perform today, how you want to be feeling today, how you want to be thinking today. In sports psychology, traditionally we sometimes get wrapped up in creating these long drawn out scripts and so forth. And it really doesn't have to be that way. It's very powerful, even in very short bursts. And during a match, we're not talking during a match, but that's how you're going to use it during a match. But even beforehand, can you just have feelings of how you want to compete in a difficult moment, or feelings about how you want to walk onto the court? Whatever that is, so let's go on to this topic of visualization, if that's all right with you, Josh. And I want to hear, because you had some ideas about how to use this, how players could use this as part of their preparation and make it more practical for them.
Yeah, so I think there's certainly different ways to do it. One way that I've had a lot of experience with, and this is something I do with almost all of the athletes I work with, is to come up with some sort of script. And this could be about a paragraph long, maybe a bit more. And that might be a situation, a situation that they might find themselves in. Maybe it's walking out on the court for the match when a lot of people feel anxiety, they feel nerves, butterflies, and really thinking about a situation like that. Or maybe it's a break point, or maybe it's situation where they're not playing that well and they're losing and they're trying to think about how they want to respond to that. So maybe it's one script, maybe it's two or three, but they'll be able to write out that script. But when it comes to the visualization, they're trying to not just think about what am I seeing, and not sort of viewing it as just watching a movie or watching a TV show in their head, but really trying to put themselves in that moment. And I think a couple of tools, and I know we've mentioned this, but I think a couple of tools that are really helpful to do that are to really incorporate the senses as much as possible. So not just what am I seeing, but what am I hearing? Can I really include some vivid sounds, right? Maybe it's the sound of my racket making contact with the ball. Maybe it's the sneakers squeaking against the court. Maybe it's birds chirping if you're playing outside. Maybe it's the people on the court next to you. Whatever it is, can you get those sounds involved? And then you do the same thing with the other senses. Feel, right? Can you feel the grip in your hand? Can you feel yourself making contact with the ball? Can you feel kinesthetically your swing, yourself swinging at the ball? Smell and taste are always a little tougher, but maybe you're playing outside. There's a certain smell. Maybe indoor. Maybe you're playing indoor courts for our Northeast listeners, for Pacific Northwest, Midwest, wherever international, wherever people are listening from. People play indoors. Most people are familiar with that familiar indoor court smell. Taste always a little tougher. Maybe there's the taste of sweat. Maybe there's the taste of water, Gatorade from the sidelines. But can you get those different senses involved when you come up with a script like this? Or as you were saying, Brian, even for a shorter meditation, can you get some of those senses involved? So senses would be the first piece. Emotions, both the emotions that you expect to experience and the ones that you want to be generating in that moment or after that moment. And then making sure that it's not just positive, right? We want it to also be challenging, or even coming from a negative point. Maybe you just double faulted, and we're visualizing how you want to respond to that moment. So maybe you're starting with a really frustrated emotion, and then you're going about your routine, your in between point routine that you've practiced. And then what is your emotion that you have at the end of that routine when it's time to play the point? And then maybe you visualize that point out. And then what is that emotion that you feel afterwards? So trying to get some of these different pieces involved in terms of the senses, the emotions, keeping it realistic, and writing that all out, maybe editing it and then recording it. And if it's a paragraph and a half, not going to take long to record it. And it's not going to take long to listen to it. So maybe you have 1, 2, 3 of these recordings, and they're on your phone, and it's something that you can listen to before a match. So that would be a first piece. I think another one is to really try to think about your highlight reel, your personal highlight reel. And this could maybe be something that we try now. It shouldn't take too long. And for whoever's listening, you're welcome to close your eyes. Hopefully, not if you're driving. If you're driving, definitely don't do that. Just listen. But if you're not, well, you're welcome to close your eyes and really think back to some of your personal highlights. These could be some shots that you've hit or points that you've played that felt like the types of shots and points that you want to replicate. Now, this could be either just a great long rally. This could be some incredible 1 in a million shot that you hit. Maybe it's a tweener winner. Maybe it's something like that, but a shot that you would love to be able to replicate. And really picture yourself hitting that shot, playing that point or two that you have in your mind, and really play that point out or that shot out. And then really think about some of the emotions that are attached with it after that point ended, after you hit that shot. How did that feel? What were some of the feelings? How did you have a smile on your face after you hit that amazing winner, after you played that 40 shot rally? How did it feel? What did you feel like going into that next point? So that would be that first piece. And that second piece is I want you to think about a particular match where you felt like you really played your game, where you really played well, and you really executed on what you were trying to do. And you can think about who you were playing, maybe think about the score. But more than anything, just really think about how that felt playing your game, how that felt being in control, really committing to the playing style and the type of tennis that you wanted to bring out there. And really think about that feeling, really try to generate those emotions as much as possible. And you can open your eyes now. So that would be one example of a visualization. Really try again, instead of just trying to see it, really trying to put yourself in that moment, really trying to use those emotions, use your senses ideally, and really try to put yourself in that moment. So I think the scripts is one great way to do that. Again, that takes some planning ahead of time, definitely. And then I think using some sort of a highlight reel of shots, of points, of matches. So I think these are definitely a couple of tools, visualization tools that people can use going into matches. Brian, do you have any thoughts there as well?
Well, yeah, I want to comment on your um, kind of peak performance visualization. So I didn't close my eyes, but I did it, and it actually brought to mind a few things. Like one was a match I had doesn't typically come to mind, but did in that one, and it was definitely a match. It was a great performance. It was really a peak performance against this player from Northern California. So it was kind of cool to get back with that. And for me, I saw a lot of these great shots, these great points, and the emotions were cool, right? It was a lot of like intensity, really being invested in the match, being kind of pumped up, although maybe not outwardly showing it, but having that determination and drive. And so, to me, using this type of visualization is great because it helps me to generate the kinds of emotions that I know work for me. They've worked in the past, and now can I try to bring some of that to today's match? And when I've done this with players, I try to get you to think about like you work for like a sports network, ESPN, Eurosport, whatever it is, and you're a producer and you're going through the archives and you're coming up with the best highlight video package that you can come up with of your own game. And doing it organically with you, it was interesting to see what matches just came out. But you could also plan it out a little bit more if you wanted to, like you said, even with the script. Like, all right, that was a great match. This is a good match. Oh, I had some good shots yesterday. Let me throw those in there, so that you're really producing that mental emotional state that you want to experience more, right? So this can also help with that, managing the physiology piece. We could also do a visualization on a difficult situation. Let's do that. Let's say you're playing a match and you're down break point, and you're playing somebody who is really good server. So in those situations, we typically feel more pressure, right? So let's put ourselves in between points. It's 30-40. We've just gone from 30 all to 30-40, and see yourself now, feeling that pressure. Feel that. Feel the nerves. This guy's got a great server. This your opponent, this girl has a great serve. So walk back to the fence or the curtain and take some deep breaths. Just pick up your towel, wipe your face. And now this is the time to go back to your self-talk script. Use your name. Okay, Brian. Okay, Josh. This is a moment to breathe. Play with courage. You got this. You're ready for this moment. And play your game. So you can take another deep breath. See yourself just drop the towel. And you begin walking up to the line with great body language, great presence. Your shoulders are back. Your head's high. You're looking at the other side of the court. And you're projecting an image of strength here. Projecting an image of confidence. I know what I'm doing. I'm ready for this point. You begin to bounce the ball and go through your serve ritual. Maybe take one last deep breath as you pause after the last bounce. And now you're ready to go. So you can open up your eyes, and that was very short, but also it can be very powerful to bring forth those emotions of how you might feel pressure and then change it through your breathing and through your self-talk in terms of what you actually want to do. The pressure tends to be a distractor. Yeah, I have to win this point, etc. That creates difficult emotions, and we're more likely to be stressed during the point and then make a poor decision. We may try to end it too early. We may be tight and push and give the opponent the opportunity to take control or hit a winner or a forcing shot. And so we want to make sure that we know how we want to play that point and how we want to feel. And that's very easy to do beforehand, is to think about some of the situations in which you may feel like you're going to struggle. And I think this is how Novak Djokovic typically uses visualization in his mental prep, is to bring to mind some of the difficult situations that he expects to face so that if and when they occur, he feels prepared for it. So if we're this situation, 30-40, he would feel like, all right, I know exactly what I'm doing. I don't necessarily feel pressure. I've practiced this a million times in my mind, and I know I'm going to serve the ball out wide to the backhand and then hit the first shot into the deuce side corner and go from there. So it's just a matter of execution. So I think visualization is really a powerful tool, Josh, in our preparation, and it can be used for so many things. You even mentioned that, the walking on the court. That's a great visualization, is picture yourself how you want to walk on the court with your bag over your shoulders. You're again walking tall with confidence. Perhaps you have headphones in. You're just zoned in. And you walk to your chair, put your bag down, you grab your racket. And one of the things I like to say is when you grab your racket, it just feels right in your hand. Natural. It's like an extension of you. And there's this comfort factor. Every time you pick up your racket, yes, this is me. This is part of me. It's just natural for me to swing this racket. And then begin to see yourself playing in the warm-up and feeling the ball. It feels great on my strings. I can hear the pop of the ball coming off my strings. I can feel the spin and the depth of what I'm doing. And it's a great way to just visualize that warm-up, right? Because the warm-up is about warming up. It's not about being perfect. But if you can really start to establish some feel and rhythm with your game, and you're seeing yourself do that, you have a much better chance of executing it, when you have to do it live.
Absolutely. And I tried that for whoever's watching rather than listening. I closed my eyes, really tried to put myself in that moment. And yeah, I felt those emotions. I felt that those nerves at first being down 30-40. But through slowing myself down, through being intentional, through breathing, through, reminding myself of the way that I wanted to play, I was able to move on past that and generate a whole different realm of emotion. So, no, I think that's very important. And yeah, I think people being able to really be clear about what is the type of shot that I'm trying to hit. How does that feel? How am I breathing during that shot? Where am I making contact? How am I watching the ball to the strings or really tracking the ball? I think all of that is really key. Can I visualize myself in the way that I want to be moving my feet and the footwork that I want to be using and how that feels as well? So I think being able to use this as a tool is really key. And again, this is something that's a tool that people can use off the court, certainly, and should be. But definitely in that time before a match, I think is a great time to really bring a number of these different tools and skills that you've been working on to life and really try to, put them all together as your mental warm-up. I think another piece that would be great to really focus on, and I think this relates to some of the process goals that we discussed earlier, but is separate, is, can you focus on what are some of those main attributes that you really want to be embodying on the court? Maybe it's energy. Maybe it's emotional control. Maybe it's awareness. Maybe it's shot tolerance and consistency. Whatever some of those main things are. Maybe you're picking two or three of them, and that's a clear focus of yours. That you've identified that these are some of the main attributes that have in the past led to your success, and are some of the main things that will contribute to success on the court, and really trying to focus on those things. And then I think that's the first piece, and then really trying to commit to really prioritizing those things once you step on the court. So I think that would be another important piece. Can you really identify, and hopefully that's taken place ahead of time, identifying what are some of those main attributes, but really reviewing those or thinking about those, and really reminding yourself of that the important piece is that commitment piece, that it's not just remembering those, but it's really about, can I commit to, let's say, my emotional control as one of those attributes that I really value, that is really important and critical to my success, and that's going to be one of my goals out there today. That's going to be one of my, one of those attributes that I'm trying to embody. I think when it comes to those process goals, when it comes to these attributes as well, can we get to a point where those are the ultimate goal? That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to follow through with my intentions. I'm trying to follow through with those attributes that I'm, really trying to embody. I'm trying to be, I'm trying to have that energy. I'm trying to have that consistency and shot tolerance. I'm trying to be aware out there, whatever those main things are. And if I can do all those things, then I've done my job out there. I've done everything I can do. I've controlled the controllable pieces, and ultimately the results will be what they're going to be, right? And there's always factors out of our control. The ball hits the light cord and trickles over. An opponent makes a call or a few calls that we disagree with. There's weather outside of our control. There's always things out of our control, but can we really focus on those controllable pieces and make those the main goal, the main thing that we're trying to strive for and achieve out there? And if the more that we can do that, the better chance we give ourselves to have the sort of result that we want, and to win, and to play well, and to ultimately feel good about our performance at the end of the day.
Yeah, I like that, because I think to feel satisfied, we need a better criteria for a successful day, which is really what you're saying, right? So a successful day can't be determined by the result, but it can be determined by your commitment to your process goals and to your other attributes, right? Your other performance variables. So if you do a great job with playing with great attitude, you fought the whole time, you paid attention to your between point routine, and these are the things that you deemed as being important, then what else can we ask of you? That's a successful day. Whether you won or you lost, you did what you said you were going to do. You committed to it. You played with the best effort you could. You had the best attitude you could. What more can you do? The winning and the losing is not fully within your control, and and sometimes it gets down to a 10-point tiebreaker or a tiebreaker in the third set. You've done everything right, but maybe the result just didn't go your way, and that happens sometimes. That's what happens in a sport in which we have a direct opponent. So we don't want to just set winning as the only criteria for success, because that will then become a difficult path. So, the goals and then other performance variables or attributes that you believe are important, and committing to those, because I think the commitment part is important. It's very easy to write this stuff down and then go out on the court and do something completely different. But if you're committed to the purpose of today is to get better at these things, these goals are what are important, because I know if I do them, they give me a better chance of winning. And these other attributes or variables are also important, because I know that they are important to me managing my physiology, having the right level of intensity, having the right body language, whatever that is, and committing to that, then you can feel good about how you performed. Because one of I think the key reflection questions is, when you come off the court, is what am I satisfied with in terms of what I did, and what did I enjoy? And when you talk about commitment, Josh, I think committing to enjoying the battle, enjoying the fight, or embracing that aspect of tennis is very important. Because many of these variables and these goals can sometimes be driven more by the outside factors, like the score, winning and losing, and so forth. And we want to try to decouple them. We want to treat them as independent variables that we can work on regardless of the score, regardless of who we're playing, regardless of who is watching, regardless of anybody's UTR. The more that you learn to bring that control to those variables, those attributes, those goals, the sooner you'll see your results begin to improve and you'll feel better on the court. So commitment in this preparation process is, I think, super, super important. Otherwise, you can likely be distracted by things going on around you rather than what you're doing yourself.
Definitely. I think one maybe last point that I would add, and this is, I think, more just of a philosophical approach about our game in general, I think is, as we think about trying to take pressure off ourselves, big picture, can we really remind ourselves of the importance of this match, right? And I think oftentimes people go into a match and they really want to win, and it feels like a big match, and it can feel like everything is riding on this upcoming match. They need to win. They need to increase their UTR. They need to impress people, impress their parents, their coaches, their teammates, whatever it may be. But reminding ourselves that each individual match is just another data point, another milestone, another chance for us to get a bit better, a bit closer to the player that we're ultimately trying to become. And I think when it's viewed this way, when it's viewed as this is another chance to do that, rather than I need to win this match, I'm supposed to win, I should win, I have to win this match, it takes a lot of pressure off us. And I think it becomes a lot easier to play well when things are viewed in this way. And I think sometimes, I'll try to make that point to somebody, and they almost take it as, well, we don't care about winning, or winning's not that important. And that's not it. We all want to win. And as I think you said earlier in the episode, Brian, winning is sort of wanting to win, being competitive, being competitive is sort of a prerequisite. We assume that you want to win. You wanting to win is not unique, right? Most people, almost everybody wants to win, wants those sorts of results. But can you really, can you look to take pressure off? Can you focus on your process? Can you utilize some of these skills that we've talked about throughout this episode as a way to really, give yourself the best chance to do that, to focus on your how, to focus on your process in order to give yourself the best chance to perform in a way that you're going to be proud of ultimately, that's going to help set you up for your future, that's going to help give you the best chance to be successful and playing in a way that you're going to ultimately, at the end of the day, win or lose, be satisfied with.
So we look forward to hearing your stories, getting your feedback and questions on some of the things that we've discussed in this episode, and specifically, are there things that were in this episode that were helpful for your preparation and for your understanding why you play, your focus, your confidence, using tools like visualization and breathing and meditation and goal setting and self-talk scripts and so forth. How were they helpful to you? How have you been able to use those? And that'll give us, some material for how we can put together even more episodes on preparation and maybe even be more specific. So, well, thank you all for listening. That's our show for today. For more on today's episode, please check out the show notes. If you have feedback or questions for me and Josh, please email us at tennisiqpodcast@gmail.com. Also, please rate and review the podcast so others can find it. Additionally, please subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice, including YouTube, so you can be notified of new episodes. And you can also check us out on Instagram. If you would like to support the podcast, please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/tennisiqpodcast/membership, where you can learn about the benefits of being part of the Tennis IQ podcast community. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon in our next episode.